Star Wars collectors, and welcome to episode 51 of Ask Bossk's Bounty. This is the weekly series that drops every Sunday where you guys get to ask me questions in the comment section below, and I do my very best to answer them each week. If you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comment section below, and hopefully I will get round to answering it. I do have a lot of questions every week, so I can't answer them all, so I do apologise now, but we got some cracking questions again this week. But before we do get on to this week's questions, I did want to extend a very big thank you to my Patreon supporters, and in particular my two new Patreon supporters that joined this week. Thank you so much. The support means a lot, and if you do fancy becoming a Patreon supporter, I will leave the link in the description below, and you can see what perks you get by supporting me on Patreon. I'm trying to do a lot more with it these days with the amount of people that I have on there. I feel that I do need to produce content just for Patreon, so yeah, just go check it out, see what you think, and support me if you can. And with all that being said, if you happen to like this video, don't forget to drop a like down below, and we will get straight on to the first question. Grandmaster Yoda says, nice video as always. Do you think Hasbro will give us only the main characters from Rogue One like Cassian or Krennic, or will they make some less important characters like Saw Gerrera or Moroff too? P.S. I would absolutely love to see a vintage collection Saw Gerrera. Me and you both, Grandmaster Yoda. If I'm honest, I do count Saw Gerrera as a main character, and I do believe that Hasbro will get round to making Saw Gerrera for us. I think it's pretty inevitable. If we look at the figures that we have here, these are 4 of the main characters from Rogue One. The only other characters that we have from Rogue One are essentially troopers. Loads of different troopers we've had from Rogue One, which is absolutely awesome. You know, I've got no complaints about that. But I do think Saw Gerrera is a main character, and we will get him. Then, of course, because we have had Chirrut Imwe, I think it's inevitable that we will get Baze Malbus. I really do hope so anyway. And of course, to complete the gang, then we do need Bodhi Rook. I'm actually going to do a video on my top 10 wanted Rogue One figures for the vintage collection pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. Arc Lieutenant Jesse says, nice video. Question, what happened to the 3.75 inch Black series? I liked Star Wars but grew out of getting toys, collector's stuff throughout high school, but now I'm back in. I actually did a video about the last run of the 3.75 inch Black series, which ended just before they brought the vintage collection out. That's got loads of the figures from there, but essentially it was just a line that they cancelled and replaced it with the vintage collection. In my opinion, the Black series should never have started. They should have just carried on with the vintage cards, but that's a whole nother story. But check out that video because I do go through a lot of the figures that came out in the 3.75 inch Black series, particularly the Walmart exclusive ones in the red and black boxes. The TV Baby 83 says, the Razor Crest is stuck at 12,026. What's your thoughts on the carbon blocks? Do you think we'll get them? I can't see a separate release to the masses. My fingers are crossed though. I think it's looking pretty tight. I mean, if we're looking at how many we're getting in the last couple of days, we are going to need 80 a day, I think, to hit the 13,000 mark in 15 days. Will there be a bit of a mad rush at the end to get us over the line? I really do hope so, and I probably think that'll be the case. I think we'll just about go over 13,000. I think asking for anything over that, sort of towards the 15,000 mark, is probably asking a bit much now with 15 days to go. But saying that, you never know, because obviously with the barge, loads and loads and loads of support came for that in the very last couple of days. So we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, we definitely need to hit that 13,000. Nick Faridswan says, hi boss, big fan of your videos. Will there be any figures from the Bad Batch from the Clone Wars series? I would imagine there will be. The show debuts next year, I believe, halfway through the year, maybe even as soon as May 2021, the Bad Batch series starts. But let's face it, if there's a Star Wars TV show or film, there's going to be figures to accompany it. It's just the way it is. So that's great if that is the case, and hopefully we'll get them on some vintage cards. Jared Cantor says, why is the toy market so bad in the UK such that stores don't bother carrying stock? Well, at the end of the day, they got completely burnt by the Last Jedi, and then subsequently after that, the Solo figures. Those Last Jedi figures are still on the pegs to this day, the 3.75 inch 5POA figures. And essentially because they got burnt with those and they're still carrying those stock, they stopped stocking Star Wars after that, so we saw very little. However, I do feel that it's coming back a little bit. We're seeing some Black Series and Mission Fleet and stuff like that in Smiths. The Entertainer have just started doing the Vintage Collection and Black Series again, new figures, so that can only be good for the collectors, that we can actually go to these stores and find the figures. So let's just hope it's back, and we can start showing Hasbro that the toy industry, especially around Star Wars, is strong. Walter Azubel says, congrats on episode 50, mate. My question is, do you think Hasbro should make an ultimate Clone Trooper figure so they can use it to make variations the same way they did with the Rogue One Stormtrooper? I think this would show more consistency from Hasbro's part and prevent bad repacks like Rex. Cheers from Brazil. 100%, mate. It's astounding why they didn't use the ARC Trooper 3-pack mould for Rex in some way. We can see here, this is the one you're talking about here, the Rogue One Stormtrooper. He has been used multiple times. We've got the Shadow Trooper here. We've got the Remnant Stormtrooper here. And of course, we do have the Solo Mimbam Trooper here, which is exactly the same figure as these ones. But, you know, just the helmet is slightly different. He's got this like blast shield on the head and a cape, obviously. But the mould of the actual figure is exactly the same. So they've managed to get 4 figures out using 1 mould. Of course, we have now got the carbonised version of him as well. So that's 5. So yeah, absolutely, they need to do that for a Clone Trooper. Get us a standard Phase 1 and Phase 2 Clone Trooper. Then they can repaint him to death and give us all the lieutenants and all that kind of stuff. I'm 100% up for that, my friend. Doug North says, how do you feel about the rumour that the new wave of retros being modern characters instead of original Kenner and Palatoy characters? Yeah, so if anyone's watching this that hasn't heard the rumour from yakface.com, possibly even as early as tomorrow on Mando Monday, it's going to be announced that we are going to be getting a wave of retro collection figures, but they're going to be based on the Mandalorian, which is, you know, modern figures and characters done in the retro Kenner style. Now, I remember when the retro collection was first announced and we saw the images of Grand Moff Tarkin, and I thought it was a great idea. I do prefer the fact that they make these characters that we never had back in the day in the vintage Kenner style. I think that's awesome. I prefer that to actually just giving us the characters that we've always had. Although saying that, the ones that they have done do look good. I can't get away from the fact that they do look good, and it's a way of getting those figures on those car backs without paying thousands and thousands of pounds for an actual vintage Kenner Han Solo, you know. However, it is going to seem a little bit weird that we're going to be getting Mandalorian characters made in the Kenner style when obviously those figures and characters weren't around when Kenner were making figures. So it's going to be a little bit weird, but it is also maybe going to give us a window into the future for the card backs in terms of what the card backs are going to be looking like for, say, Queel and Grief Karga and characters like that, because I'd imagine that they'll end up using the same card back just like they did for the Luke Skywalker Snowtrooper figure. The one that came in the Hoth game is exactly the same card back as they've used for the 6-inch Black Series figure. But it will be interesting to see what they look like. I'm actually quite looking forward to them. I think they'll probably look really good. They'll do a good job. But hopefully they will be revealed tomorrow on Mando Monday. And of course, I'll be doing a roundup video of that, so you can check that out tomorrow evening. Josh G says, hey boss, question for next video. Similar to the topic in one of your recent vids, do you think most of the Legacy Collection stuff, such as vehicles and a lot of the figures, are actually rare circulation-wise or just expensive? I've got a feeling they're just expensive, and I think that's because maybe you've got new collectors of the vintage collection since it's come back are now looking to some of the older stuff. I mean, I know I'm actually guilty of that. I wasn't actually collecting figures too much at the time of the Legacy Collection due to buying a house and getting married and things like that. So for a couple of years, I missed out on a lot of figures. So I'm one of those people that's revisiting that. And because of that, the value goes up. And if they're sought after figures, then they're going to be expensive. Joe Uriah says, hey boss, congrats on the big 50. Looking forward to many more. I just had a quick question for next week. Do you think they will consider coming out with a 3.75-inch Moff Gideon and TIE Fighter set from The Mandalorian? Looking forward to the room tour. Always a great vid, boss. Keep it up. Thank you, Joe. So I do know that we are going to be getting a 3.75-inch Moff Gideon, and that may be even revealed again at Mando Monday tomorrow. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that one. Really looking forward to that one. And I would imagine possibly next year that they will give us that TIE Fighter with the folding wings. Will it come with a figure inside? Probably not. Not if he's going to be single carded, but I would imagine at some point next year that TIE Fighter will come out. And then if it does, then you've got the pairing because you've got Moff Gideon on the single card. ILBFT man says, do you think we will see the entire Knights of Ren group in the vintage collection? I didn't care much for the generic Knight of Ren release because it had a name, as do the others. Maybe in 3 packs or single carded would be fine. I think we might be waiting quite a long time for those Knights of Ren. I really don't think that they're going to be too high on the agenda or schedule of Hasbro, if I'm very honest. We're going to be getting Mandalorian, we're going to be getting Clone Wars, and we're going to be getting some of the figures from the original 96. That is what will be the focus for next year, along with Rogue One. And that is because they did mention it on the live stream a few weeks ago that it's going to be the 5th anniversary of Rogue One next year. So expect more figures from Rogue One. Hopefully some of the ones that I talked about earlier. And as I mentioned, I will do a video on my top 10 most wanted Rogue One figures because, you know, next year's going to be a fairly big year for Rogue One, I feel. Frank Tetty says, question for next week. As a new collector who concentrates mainly on the original trilogy collecting, do you think I should hunt down the figures released before in the VOTC, Star Wars, Empire and Jedi, or wait for repacks, resculpts in the newer waves of the vintage collection, keeping in mind it may take a while? Love to know your thoughts. Yeah, so Frank, I do think it's going to be a while before we get like a new Luke Skywalker and a new Leia and a new Lando from those VOTC lines. At the end of the day, those figures actually aren't too expensive to pick up on eBay. Some of them are almost retail price. So I would personally get them in some star cases, get them in your collection, and then wait for Hasbro over the next however many years to give us the updated versions. Rex McQueen says, hi Bossk, thank you for keeping the love of collecting going for us fans. How do you feel about customs? My end goal is to have all the fighters from the original trilogy. I have all that Hasbro has made and have found people selling custom painted ones that have never been made. So do you mean pilots when you say fighters? I think that's what you mean, the guys in the orange flight suits. So previously I never really cared too much for customs. It's not something that I'm very good at. It's never anything that I've tried. I've done the odd head swap here and there, but in terms of defacing Hasbro figures and then repainting them and things like that, it's not something that I've ever done and would be any good at. However, I do have a newfound love for them since being sent this guy by my friend and fan of the channel, Colin Hobbs. He made this awesome Bossk in a green flight suit with his little helmet there, and I absolutely love it. So this sort of thing, yeah, brilliant. I can see why people like customs. It's just, I'm rubbish at it, so, and that's why I'm not involved. Bartolo Vader says, hey Bossk, nice video. What sequel figures would you like to see in the vintage collection? Personally, I would like episode 9 Finn. Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit that the sequel trilogy characters are probably at the bottom of my list right now when it comes to the vintage collection. I think there's a lot more figures that need and characters that need to be done first before those. But if I was going to pick a few from maybe episode 9, I would definitely like, is it Lieutenant Connix? I think it'd be really nice to have Carrie Fisher's daughter in figure form. I think that'd be awesome. It'd be a nice thing to do as well, and it'd be a good figure, you know. She's a good character in that film. Also, we need General Pride. I think he was probably one of the better characters from episode 9. Imperial Officer, looks pretty decent. And then maybe an older Lando, if I was going to pick any from there. But to be honest, there isn't many that I would be at the top of my list. Ed5 says, well done on reaching 50 shows, mate. This is always a highlight of my Monday mornings, to be enjoyed with a coffee. Question, are you able to gauge from the data how much the channel has grown since starting Ask Bossk's Bounty? Keep up the good work, Tim. Cheers. Yeah, I would say that when I look at these stats and everything, that there is a marked sort of increase in popularity of the channel around the time that I did started the Ask Bossk Bounty series. I know that fans of the channel do enjoy it, and it's why I keep it going. I enjoy it too. But I don't think that's the only reason why the channel's grown. I think I did some videos around that time which, you know, were some of my best viewed videos and gained the most subscribers that I've had in like a single day and things like that. So it's not just down to Ask Bossk Bounty that the channel's grown. It's a lot of different factors, but it's definitely a contributing factor, no doubt about it. Darth Pepperoni, that is such a good name. Hey Bossk, there are some figures from the Star Wars universe that could be considered boring to the main public, but that I really think we need in the vintage collection, like Owen, Beru, Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, the Max Rebo Band, and several Imperial officers. I know it's very unlikely to get them in the near future, but what do you think? Would you like to get them? I am 100% with you, Darth Pepperoni. We are on exactly the same page. Those figures and characters I would love to see in the vintage collection. The card backs would be really good, and the characters are needed. They're big characters from the original trilogy. Mon Mothma, Owen and Beru. 100% mate, I'm with you. Alright then guys, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like down below and also leave your questions in the comment section below for next week's episode. And we shall see you on the next one.